So, you probably read a little bit about the strengths of Illustrator versus the strengths of Photoshop. Hopefully you've checked out the links that I have in the Google Classroom. So what I wanted to do was to show you a little bit more clearly some of the ways that you can easily get confused. Hopefully this won't confuse you too badly. So right now what we've got is we've got a vector logo. And we can tell this is a vector logo because we are in Illustrator. And if I go to the wireframe view by hitting Control Y, you can see that we have all our vector handles. So I can check here, and we see a lot of anchor points and things. So clearly we are in Illustrator. So let's go back. We're going to hit Control Y, and we're going to go back. I'm going to deselect everything, and I think it's a great way to bridge everything to export, export from Illustrator to a Photoshop file. So right now we have a vector file. We're going to export from Illustrator to a JPEG file, and we can do that by going up to File, Export, and we're going to export as, and here JPEG comes up in our menu, and we're going to export it as the same file name, except instead of an EPS file, which is what I have in Illustrator with the vector art, we're going to export it as a JPEG. When I hit export, we get different things that we can select. I don't like to export as a CMYK. I like RGB. It's a different color space where you have a bit more. So right now, it's set for maximum. Let's set it for medium, and we're going to set this for 72, and I'm going to hit OK. So now, I'm going to go to Photoshop, and I'm going to open that file. So here's my JPEG. I'm going to open that thing up. And right now, you'll see that this is at 100%. You can get that down here, or you can get that up here. So from that 100%, it's kind of small on the screen. So what would happen if we tried to enlarge that to, say, 400%? So I'm going to hit Control plus. 1, 2, 3. Whoa, look at that. It looks horrible. Let's go back to Illustrator. And if I go in 400% here, whoa, looks fantastic. How about that? So this is what we're talking about when we talk about vectors, which is Illustrator graphics, are independent of resolution. So if I wanted to blow this up the size of a billboard, we could. I want to shrink it down. Everything is cool. But when we go to Photoshop, this is pixel based. And you can see here that that logo would not hold up really well if I wanted to fill a page. So let's go back to Illustrator because we can actually change how we export that. Let's say File, Export as, and this time, oops, hold on. Let's change this to, instead of 79, we'll make it 80. Okay, there we go. I'm going to say Export. And now we're going to go back to RGB. We're going to go for a larger file. So what this is the maximum quality, the least amount of compression. A JPEG will have compression, as you see down here, compression. And we can also change our resolution. We have not talked about resolution with Illustrator because it's not a concern. Before it was 72 dots per inch, or pixels per inch, and now it's going to be 300 pixels per inch. So imagine that we took a ruler, and if we had 1/8 inches, we'd have 8 pixels per inch, right? Or if we had a 1/16 inch ruler, we would have 16 pixels per inch. Well, now instead of 72, we've got 300. The more pixels you have, the smoother it will be. So let's hit OK. Now we're going to go back to Photoshop, and we're going to open up another file. This time, we're going to open up what we just created. Look here, 31 kilobytes versus 177 kilobytes. So the file is already bigger. All right, and look at that. It's looking pretty good. So how do you control this? What's up with all this resolution stuff? So if I go in here into my resolution, I can check that through going to Image at the top, image size. Here you'll see that we have 300 pixels per inch. There's also a function down here called resample. This is a really powerful thing, and it can be very confusing if you don't know what you're doing. If you want a really good magazine print, if you're going to send this off to be published or something like that, they'll generally want 300 pixels per inch, probably CMYK resolution or CMYK color space. For a normal laser printer, probably like we're using here, 150 is just fine. So watch what happens. See up here we have an image size of 898.6 kilobytes. Our pixel dimensions are 72 by 419. If I go down to 150, these numbers have all changed. That is because resample is selected. You'll also notice that this resized itself as well. So if I hit cancel, let's go back in, same thing, and we're going to look at image size again. What if we turn off resample? And what if we set this to 150? Watch what happens to the height and width. Also what happens up here. Our pixels did not change. Our size did not change in terms of image size, but our width and our height increased. So it's kind of like robbing Peter to pay Paul. You're taking the same number of pixels and you're just stretching them over a larger area. It's a little bit confusing, but I think once you get the hang of this, it'll fall into place really easily. So we have that. So let's go over to here, and we have this logo. This is, if we come up to image size, this is 72 dpi. It's 52K, and our image width is 2.458. So we're going over here. This, if we check, we just saw this a minute ago, is 4.88 and at 150 dpi. So if I come back to this, there is a way that we can copy this into another file. The same way that I like playing with layers in Illustrator, I love layers in Photoshop. I'm going to come over here. This is my layer palette. Okay, and I am going to right click on this, and I'm going to duplicate a layer. We have Orioles 79. Let's put that in Orioles 80. Remember, this is 72 pixels per inch, and it's going into a file that's 150 dots per inch. So we're going to say OK. We're going to come over here and see what happened. It's small in the image because 72 is roughly about half of what we have with the 150. So when we pull that in there, everything looks kind of gross. If we zoom in, they fall apart just about the same. So I think the thing to take away from this is that with vector graphics, if you're going to do something like a logo, it's probably better to be done in Illustrator. If you're going to have a photo, let's open up a photo here. I just happen to have a random one here. You may notice a theme. Where is it? There we go. Manny Machado. All right. So Manny is a fantastic image. This is 16.67% of the size, whereas we were going into 400. Notice that it is 17 megabytes. This is a really big image. Let's go in and look at our image size on this one. So here we're at 300 dpi, so we could print this on a letter size page and make it look really good. In fact, if we make it 150 dpi sized, we can make it way bigger than a letter size page. It's always best when you have an image like this to go with really large resolution so that if you have to go smaller, you can. Now, let's say we wanted to blow this up to a wall size, which would be 96 inches tall. So if I go to image size, and I'm going to keep my resample button deselected, if I wanted to go to 96 inches tall, watch what happens to my resolution. If If I wanted to make that a billboard size print, we're going down to 20 dpi. That's not going to be very good. That's not much better than a 1/16 of an inch, right? Really, because we got 20 pixels per inch. So these are all things that can be very confusing if you don't know how things work. But if you understand that, you're going to be way ahead of a lot of people. So mostly what I wanted you to be understanding here is that there are different tools that are usable under different circumstances. So this is 200%. This is going to be about 100%. So if we were to print this at, hold on a second, let's make this 150. There we go. Oops, hold on, I messed this up. So if I wanted to make this 150 dpi, our size is going to be about 20 inches wide. So this gives me a rough idea of how things are going to look. Now, if we wanted to, we can keep going way, way, way in, and you'll see that the image starts to deteriorate. So there is no image in Photoshop that will not deteriorate if you zoom in far enough. You will not have that problem in Adobe Illustrator. So just a little bit of stuff for you to think about. We'll get into some more resolution stuff in a minute.